In this very special tutorial, we'll be looking at a couple of very popular brackets plugins. These plugins do innovative things that you probably did not even realize that plugins could do in a text editor. To view along at home, open up your extension manager here on the right. There are countless plugins. It can be difficult to select the plugins that make sense for you. The first one we'll be looking at is Brackets Git. Brackets Git is an integration of Git into Brackets. Clicking the More Info button will bring you to the web page of that tool. Here you can see how many stars it has, as well as simple instructions on how to use it. The amount of details in the documentation will vary from repository to repository. Let's install Brackets Git. Press the Install button, and we'll get a list of options that we can choose to configure it by default. All the defaults will be fine for Git. Save that and press OK. Now we have Brackets for Git installed. A new icon has been added here on our right sidebar. Clicking it opens up a Git menu. Here we have options much like what we would expect in a simple Git interface. Let's init a new repo in this folder. It has now init a new Git repo in the folder we had open as our project folder. As you can see, this has many powerful features that we can use to integrate into our projects. It has labeled the project files, indicating if they are not added. Let's select a couple and commit those files. It's going to ask us for a message. We'll say OK. Now those have been committed. As you can see, there is no longer a marker indicating there are unstaged changes. It has also automatically created a git ignore file for us. Wow, that's a powerful plugin. The next plugin we'll be looking at is code folding. Open your extension manager, and we'll search folding. Code folding is an extension that lets you fold in your code to make it take up less space. This is commonly available in other text editors such as Sublime, so let's install it. It's now installed. Now if we open our JavaScript file, you can see there is now an arrow that we can use to fold or unfold our code. This is very useful if we have a very long function. We can fold it right up. That's awesome. And that's about all there is to it as well, to code folding. It's a simple but useful plugin. Code folding also works in CSS files. It is definitely a useful plugin that you should consider for your brackets setup. The next plugin we'll be looking at is Beautify. Open your extension manager and type Beautify. Beautify will clean up your JavaScript, CSS, and HTML and make it easier both for you to look at and other coders to look at. So install Beautify. It'll take a minute to install. Press close. Now Beautify is available in our projects. Here in the Edit menu, you can see Beautify has been added on the bottom. The shortcut on PC is Ctrl-Shift-L. If we click Beautify, you can see it's cleaned up our CSS code. Let's clean up some other code as well. Let's clean that up with Control-Shift-L. Beautify is very useful for large files with many things in it. This is about the full depth of Beautify. By the way, with the Git plugin we saw earlier, here next to our folder, we can now check out new branches right here in brackets. We'll call this branch New Branch. Wow, that is really cool. That's also about it for Beautify. Next up, we'll look at Emmet. We installed Emmet in a previous tutorial. Emmet lets us quickly write HTML and CSS rules. Let's open up an HTML file, and we'll type some Emmet. So type div and press tab, and that will automatically create a div tag. Try p.env. It will create a paragraph with the class emphasis. Here's one that's interesting. Try span star 4 tab. It will create 4 spans. Very powerful. Let's do one more. Try div dot special times 4 tab. Now it's created 4 classed divs for us. If you've written a lot of HTML, you can know how much of a headache it is to write repeated HTML tags. Emmet makes that a lot easier for us and can be installed with the extension manager. Next up, we'll be looking at the Documents Toolbar plugin. Open your extension manager and type document. Here's the Documents toolbar. Let's install it to see what it does. That's always a good idea. If you want to see what something does, just install it. Ask questions later. As you can see, it's added a familiar toolbar on the top of the screen, much like a text editor like Sublime. This is similar to the files on our left. In case plugins do not work, remember that the technology is open source. You are welcome to investigate the source and even propose a pull request. Though not easy, it is a rewarding process which moves code forward for the entire world. The next plugin we'll be looking at is HTML Hint. Open the extension manager and type HTML Hint. This is a lot like JS Hint, but for HTML. Let's install it. Now, go to your HTML file and save that. To see your HTML linter errors, click the warning in the bottom right of the screen. You can see when we installed HTML Hint, it became our default linter for HTML files. There are linters available for many different kinds of files, with new ones being created every day. The last plugin we'll look at is Minimap. Open the extension manager and type Minimap. Minimap is much like the Minimap we see in Sublime. It's easier demonstrated, so click Install. As you can see, a minimap has been added to the right of the screen. It is semi-transparent, so it must be hovered over, and may be difficult to see for a small file. But this is familiar for anyone who has used Sublime. The minimap allows us to see the overall shape of our code. Some people find it useful in finding where they are in a project. Wow, we certainly have tricked out our bracket setup. We've installed an extra toolbar, Git, Emmet, HTML Hint, Beautify, code folding, and more. This has been a really awesome tutorial, and now if you've been coding along, your brackets is insanely tricked out. Developers next to you may lean over and ask you, how did you get your brackets to do that? Be sure to tell them you saw it in this great tutorial series.